Hello and welcome. My name is Mr. C, and today I want to talk to you about restorative justice. This is my first video in a four-part series, and we're really just going to scratch the surface with all of these. And so I would invite anybody that has additional learnings or pushback for me, please share. The topic of restorative justice is so important. If you're opinionated, if you have something to say, I definitely want to hear about it. Today we're just going to talk foundations and basic tenets as I understand them. And so we're going to just dive right in. Let's talk about RJ. Let's talk about restorative justice. Let's talk about some of its foundations. And first, the first thing I want you to wrap your mind around is how this is really a philosophical shift. I was not raised with restorative approaches, with restorative justice in mind. My systems for discipline and consequences in school were very punitive, and yours might have been too. And so, in changing that and flipping that, it's a heavy lift for a lot of people, adults specifically, because we've already kind of codified those pathways in our brain of how discipline works. And so shifting that's going to be a heavy lift. The focus is on supporting, yes, the victim, great, also the offender. How are we supporting the offender as a learner and as somebody that still is deserving of their place in our classrooms, in our society? There is no curriculum for restorative justice. Maybe somebody is willing to sell you one, but just like language, when you're learning a new language, the best way to learn it is to immerse yourself. Sure, you can buy a curriculum on it, but if you immerse yourself, you're going to learn faster. Same thing with restorative justice. It is a framework for how we operate, how we resolve conflict, and how we handle discipline. And it is not mediation. You're not a judge of restorative justice deciding who's right and who's wrong. Really, you're seeking learning and understanding and empathy work for all parties, and so it is not mediation. It focuses exactly what I just said, right, on empathy and on accountability, and really learning about how your actions are going to impact your community and then how you're going to fix harm that has happened, not just identifying that harm was done, but really restoring it, right? That's the root of restorative justice, is restoring our community, restoring our relationships, restoring harm that's done. It's an inclusive, safe, and collaborative process. Oh yeah. If you are the only person in your building in charge of restorative justice, well, then your school, your building is doing it wrong. It's something you have to do together. You have to have, you know, you have to have professionals that are willing to be collegial, that are willing to kind of have eyes on your 20, give you feedback about what you're doing and how you're doing. I mean, we all have biases, and restorative work and restorative practices often uncovers a lot of that. And so we need to do it together. We cannot do it in isolation. Main goals. So when I'm thinking of restorative justice, there's four big things that I try to keep at the forefront from a priority standpoint. We want to identify harm that was done. Okay, I grew up in understanding that, right? Let's name what happened, okay? We're going to try to teach people the impact that their actions had. This is where we're talking about that empathy work. We're not just talking about consequences anymore. We want even offenders, even people who've done something wrong, to learn and grow from these experiences, right? Easy to say, but our systems are not always built for that. And so that's where a lot of the grappling as professionals comes, like in our brain, as to how we do this differently now than how we may have grown up doing it. Only then, once an individual understands the impact that they've had, can they really assume responsibility for them or accept responsibility for the harm that they've done. How often do we expect kids to apologize for something that they may not even really agree that they should be apologizing for? It's just a hoop that they jump through in order to get out of trouble. Restorative justice completely flies in the face of that idea, because we're seeking to repair harm, not just name harm, not just provide consequences to somebody who did the harm, but really to repair it and to restore it, restore those relationships, and restore that person's identity in society. All right, so here's a visual that I like. I could rant on about this visual for 10 minutes, and I have in previous iterations of this video that I deleted. So I just want you to look at it, and I want us to really think about, reflect on what it shows. And I want to draw your attention to the respect, the dignity, and the mutual concern that is really on the that is surrounding this circle. We are all, in our classrooms, in our school buildings, in our society, we all can agree that we want to live in a social contract where everybody has respect, everybody has dignity, and we all share mutual concern for each other, right? So restorative justice in schools, really seeks to, as you look at that Venn diagram, nurture healthy relationships between adults, between students, between all stakeholders, community, parents, families, all of it. We want to create an equitable learning environment for all. I think we can all agree to that. And we want to repair harm and transform conflict, not just, right? To me, that's the biggest deviation from how I grew up. We're repairing harm, not just naming it and providing consequences. And then in the middle, you probably can't see it, so I'm going to blow it up right here for you. Right in the middle of all of this is the idea that people are worthy and relational. You can reflect on that for the rest of your life, because I think I could. But really, here's the idea that we are establishing relationships with kids so we can pull those levers, right? If you have a relationship with somebody, you have the ability to change that person. Without a relationship, you really can't change somebody. So we're pulling those relational levers to change and to teach all, not just victims, but offenders too, because we really truly believe at the heart of it all that everybody is worthy to be in these little societies that we call classrooms, these little societies that we call schools, and then society at large. We are all worthy to be there. We're all worthy of respect, dignity, and mutual concern, and it is relationships that get us to realize this, to have identity in these communities. And so really reflect on that. Again, we could go deeper and deeper and deeper, but I want you to do that on your own, and I want you to reflect moving forward, because the next thing we're going to do is look at traditional school discipline, traditional conflict resolution in schools, and then really the shift that we need to make in order to have a more restorative approach where we focus not just on harm done and not just on the person who did that harm, but the lessons that they stand to learn if we want them to grow and continue to be a part of these little classroom societies. So reflect on that and think about that before next time.